Hello everyone and welcome. Today we are going to talk about S3 object lock, and as always we are going to have a short presentation and a detailed demo. Alright, so let's go. Now imagine that you have an S3 bucket and you have 3 files in it. Now for whatever reasons, maybe compliance, maybe you want to improve the governance, you want to lock these files in a different way, right? So let's see what kind of options that you have. Now let's say the first file, you lock this file, and this file cannot be deleted until the lock is lifted. However, the file can be deleted or updated if the lock is lifted, right? On a second file, let's say you want to apply a lock, however you want to make sure that that lock expires after a certain date. So for example, today is 17th of July 2021 and I want this file to have its lock expired on 1st of August, right? So, and at the same time, if there is a need to update this file or delete this file, with proper permissions I should be able to lift the lock and delete the file or update it if I need to do so, right? So that's the second type of lock. Now the third type of lock, which is a lot more restrictive lock, where once the lock is applied, until that day comes or the date is over, the file cannot be tampered with at all. Even the root account of AWS account cannot do anything to that file. Now this is obviously a far more restrictive lock, and that's why I've shown it in red, whereas the other two locks, they are shown in green, because even though technically you're locking the file, but the person with proper permissions can be asked to unlock the particular file. Now in S3 terms, the first one, the first type of soft lock, where you lock the file to protect it against updates as well as deletes, is called as legal hold. It doesn't have a timeline. Second one is called as, in fact the second and the third are retention locks, of which the second one, where the lock is kind of a soft lock, is called as a governance lock, where there is a date defined for the lock, but if you need to, you can request for the lock to be lifted. The third one, which is the most restrictive type of lock, is called as the S3 retention compliance lock, or S3 retention lock in compliance mode. And here, once the lock is applied, until that day is passed, there is no way you can unlock this file, or in fact you cannot change the contents of this file or delete this file. So those are the three types of locks that are available on S3. And now let's jump into the detailed demo. Alright, in today's demo we have 3 files, 1.txt, 2.txt and 3.txt. So 1.txt has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2.txt has 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 3.txt has 11 through 15, and then we have updated versions of these files as well. So for each of the files, all we have done is we have added an A to the start. So that's the 3.txt. So yeah, so we have 2 versions of each file, right? So first what we are going to do is we are going to go ahead and create a bucket and enable the object lock while we create the bucket. So let's go ahead into my S3 console, and I'm going to create a bucket. Let me call it S3 object lock demo, and 07/17/2021, that's today. And Mumbai region is fine, everything else remains the same. Now versioning is required when you need to have object lock enabled. So let's go ahead into advanced settings and enable the object lock, and I'm going to acknowledge that we are enabling the object lock, and notice what happens now. Bucket versioning is enabled, right, by default. Let's go ahead and create the bucket. Already we have the bucket created, so let's search for it. S3 object lock demo, and there's the bucket. Let's upload our first set of files here. Alright, so I'm here. Let me copy all these 3 files, pull them here. Alright, and let's go ahead and upload. Alright, so now if we go back into the bucket, notice that we have all these 3 files. Now let's open these files one by one, so let's do that. 1.txt, 2.txt, 3.txt. Currently we haven't applied any locks, although the lock is enabled at the bucket level. Now let's go ahead and wait for this to get loaded. So 1.txt. Now what we are going to do is we're going to scroll down and we're going to go ahead and apply the first type of lock, which is the legal hold. So let's go ahead and enable the legal hold and save changes. Notice that we don't have to specify a date while applying the legal hold. Now let's go to the 2.txt file, scroll down again, and here we are not going to apply the legal hold. However, you can mix and match. You can apply a legal hold as well as a retention lock. We're not going to make things that complicated today. So instead, we have already applied legal hold to the first file. For the second file, I'm going to go ahead and enable the lock retention, and I'm going to enable governance mode. And here I have to specify a date. So I'm going to say 1st of August 2021 and save changes. Alrighty, so now let's go to the 3.txt, scroll down again, object lock retention, this time enable and apply the compliance mode. Again, let's put it till 1st of August again, and that's that. Alright, so now if you scroll down, notice that in fact, let's go from 1.txt. So 1.txt has a legal hold enabled on it, 2.txt has a retention lock enabled on it in a governance mode, and 3.txt has a compliance mode retention lock enabled on it. Now let's do something interesting. So notice that we have files 5 bytes, 6 bytes and 10 bytes for 1, 2 and 3. So let's try to change or let's try to upload the updated contents. We have two sets of file I showed you earlier, right? So I'm going to go ahead and copy this and pull it here. So now before I press upload, you can stop the video and think about what's going to happen. Do you think since we have applied the lock, will we be able to upload these files? These are the updated versions of the files. Think about it. Alright, let's go. Upload. Boom. So actually all 3 files got uploaded, right? Now you might be wondering why that is, right? We have logged the contents of these files, and even then, right, the files got uploaded. What's happening, right? Now to understand that, remember initially the object versions or the versioning was enabled on this bucket. So what happens is whenever a lock is applied to a particular file, it only applies to the version of the file on which we are applying the lock. It doesn't apply to any future versions of the file. So basically, so I'm back in the bucket now. Go ahead and show versions. So notice that each of our files have 2 different versions, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the latest version of the 1.txt into this tab, and we already have 1.txt open here. Is this, yeah, 1.txt. So notice that the old version actually has the legal hold enabled, whereas the new version, right, if you go into the versions tab, we have selected the latest version. If we go into the properties, notice that it has both of them disabled. So the point to understand here is that the versions are protected as opposed to the entire object, right? Object can have different versions. So 1.txt here has a couple of versions. That's true with 2.txt as well and 3.txt as well. So that's that. Now we want to see whether our objects are protected. So let's try to delete the 3.txt, 2.txt and 1.txt. Now we are going to do it from the AWS console. In fact, we're not going to do it from the AWS console, and there's an Easter egg here. I'm going to explain that probably at the end of this video as to why we are not going here straight away and deleting it. We are going to use CLI, which is the command line interface. I've logged in as an administrator there, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just delete or try to delete the specific version. So now notice that the latest versions are not protected, but the older versions are. So we're going to try to delete the older versions, the original versions of each of these 1.txt, 2.txt and 3.txt. Alright, so since we are going to use CLI, we are going to use this AWS S3 API delete object command, right? And I have already created the commands for all the 3 files so that we can get this done quicker. And these are some of the commands that are from my previous video, which you might be interested in regarding multi-region AWS KMS keys. Yeah, so do check that out and do subscribe to the channel. I create content that is simpler to understand and with detailed demos. All right, with that out of the way, now let's see what we are doing in this particular command. So what we are doing here is we're saying that we want to delete 1.txt with this particular version starting with RZE. So let's look at that. So now notice that RZE is the version that we protected with the legal hold. So let's go ahead and copy this command really quickly and paste it here. Let's see what happens. All right, we have access denied, although I have already configured my CLI with an administrator user. So I'm going to copy this, paste. Again, for 2.txt we get the same result, and for the 3.txt we also get the same result, right? So the retention locks as well as the legal hold are actually working, right? Now let's go ahead and take off the legal hold as well as the retention lock, and then try to delete the file, and also we'll try to check what can be done for the 3.txt file. So alright, so I'm gonna go ahead and go to the 1.txt file, which is I guess here, and I'm gonna edit the legal hold, and so go ahead and disable that and save changes. So now notice that the retention is disabled, and I'm just checking whether I'm doing it for the right version. I guess right, let me actually go into the version. Let me go into the RZE version, scroll down. Yeah, I think I changed it for the latest version. I should have done it for the older version. So disabled. So now notice that the legal hold, we have disabled that one. Save changes. Let's go ahead and try to open the original version of 2.txt as well, and go into the versions. This is the one that we have selected. Scroll down, and we're gonna change the retention, and this is the governance retention. We can actually change it to a different date as well, but here we are going to go ahead and just disable that. Save changes. Excellent. And let's try to check what can be done for 3.txt. So I'm going to go into versions, I'm going to go into properties, and notice that okay, sorry, I think I have not gone into the latest one, the original one. So original version selected, scroll down, and notice that we have the compliance mode retention set here. I'm going to edit that, and notice now there is no way I can disable that. So until 1st of August 2021, this file has to be the same. It cannot be deleted, it cannot be overwritten, nothing can be done to it. Alright, so that's that. So now that we have lifted the hold on 1.txt and disabled the lock on 2.txt, let's try to delete those versions again. So here's my command for 1.txt, and there you go. This time we don't get an error. So for 2.txt, also no error, and obviously 3.txt, because we couldn't lift the lock, we are still gonna get that error till the retention period is over. So now let's go ahead and see how many versions are remaining in this bucket. So we have let's show versions. So notice that 1.txt is having only one version, 2.txt having only one version as well, and 3.txt has both the versions, the latest one as well as the one we could not delete, and that was the one that was protected, right? So that's basically how the S3 object lock is able to protect your objects. Now that really concludes our demo. So what we did was we created a bucket, we enabled the locking of the bucket at the start, which also enabled the versioning. We uploaded the three files, 1.txt, 2.txt, and 3.txt, and then we uploaded new versions of it, which went well. We had also locked this into different locks. For example, for 1.txt it was a legal hold, 2.txt it was a governance hold, 3.txt it was basically compliance hold, and then we tried deleting these files. We couldn't delete the protected versions of those files, and then we lifted the locks for 1.txt and 2.txt. As you know, they are kind of soft locks in that sense, and we were able to actually delete those versions of the file, but for the 3.txt there is really nothing that can be done. Alright, now there is an Easter egg I promised you guys at the start, so let me show you what that is. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and for the 2.txt I'm going to go ahead and upload another version. So let's create a version for 2.txt. I'm going to go ahead and maybe go to 2.txt and I'm going to say maybe 1 2 3 4 5 and save that, and let me go ahead and upload that file. So here we go. So notice that is a little bit bigger file with 12 bytes. Now none of the versions of the 2.txt are protected. Okay, so let's go ahead and see that. So I am here, 2.txt. Let's open it up and then also open another version of the file. So there are two versions now. The original version we did delete, but this is the one that we uploaded later and the one that we uploaded recently. So let's look at those files, right? So this is kind of the 12 bytes latest version of this file, and this is having no kind of a hold on it, and also the same thing with the little bit older version, which is 7 bytes in size. So let's look at that. So that doesn't have any hold as well. So let's go ahead and edit that, and I'm going to go ahead and enable the governance mode, right? And again I'm going to say 1st August 2021, save changes. And now if I go scroll down here, notice that for this particular version of which is the version that ends with 2.p.u or 2p.u, this actually is protected in governance mode until August 21, 2021, and we have seen that it actually works. We tried deleting it via CLI and it was able to delete, it wasn't able to delete the file. Now let's see whether from the console, and I'll also in the process explain why we did not use the console to explain the deletion. So let's go to the version that is protected, which is the 7 bytes version protection, the version that is protected, and I'm going to go ahead and go into versions. The version that ends with 2pu is the one that we are going to select, and I'm going to go ahead and, mind you, this version, in fact, if you want to double check, let's scroll down. This version is protected with governance mode. Now the reason of conducting these kind of detailed demos is so that you know you should not get confused if something like this you come across, right? So think about it. This is a protected version. If I delete, what should happen? Well, ideally I should get an error, right? But let's see what happens now. Delete, and I'm going to say permanently delete. Delete. Boom. Actually, we were able to delete the protected object. Why did this happen? Well, this is a peculiarity of running with the management console, because when we ran it from here for the 2.txt file version, we had actually gotten an error, right? But here we were able to delete the protected version. The reason for that is here. So it says that when Amazon S3 console is used, when you send a delete request, it adds this header called XAMZ bypass governance retention to be true, right? And if you have these permissions to bypass the governance retention, which I do because I am the root of this particular account, it would succeed, and that's what happened, right? Alright, so let's summarize what we learned today. We looked at a brief presentation of various S3 locks that are available. There is legal hold and there are a couple of retention locks, and then we actually looked at a demo where we created or we uploaded the 3 files after creating a bucket with object locking enabled on it, and then we tried to delete the files and we saw the locks working, and then there was a small Easter egg in there where if you delete the governance mode lock as an administrator, generally from the console it gets deleted, or it has the ability to bypass the particular governance mode by default, right? So yeah, that's pretty much what we wanted to cover today. Thank you for joining, and happy cloud computing.